Sometimes I sit here and I know I've got a topic. I want to ramble about it. I want to rave about it. And I want to get it out of my head. And it is uh, trying to make sure I'm not making something that's where I'm at right now. Okay. Uh, this is a topic that's been a hot button topic, and it's come up, and there was a lot of commentary on it. As a matter of fact, some of the most commentary I've seen on the Brigade channel in some time, in some weeks, was the topic of gods in your game system. How do you play the deities? How do you bring them in? I've always believed, and I've learned this the hard way, it is a slippery slope. It is a slippery slope to have a game where the deities are literally walking side by side beside the player characters. Player characters will develop this apathy towards what are supposed to be extremely divine beings. Things that people or creatures or substances or whatever essences are supposed to shock and awe. It's just like a dragon. The dragons are supposed to shock. They're supposed to shock and awe you when they first show up. All you got to do, if you don't understand what I mean, is just look at some of the expressions that the actor characters for Game of Thrones do when the dragon first shows up. They've heard about the rumors. They didn't believe it. Suddenly, it's right there, right in their face. This huge, massive mythological beast that's an engine of destruction just lands at their feet, and it's now within touching distance, and they're just odd. The fact that we don't see any of them turning and running away, well, that's probably got to do with the directing and not reality. But the fact of the matter is, deities and demigods are that for a reason. They, on the lower levels, should, in my opinion, never be present. The occasional avatar or miraculous, what have you, is a little different. And I'm still using that term loosely too, because I don't think you should toss the gods' avatars around lightly either. Not at the lower levels. There's a difference though. There's a fine difference. When we're getting into things like the epic level play, most GMs, most game masters, most players for that matter, I think will agree, and I've heard enough people say this to some degree or another to be confident in my belief in this, that most game systems somehow peter out by the time you hit the high teens. When your character's level breaks 20, suddenly you're in epic level play, and things change dramatically. For starters, I've got the Deities and Demigod book. I understand what these creatures, these beings of ultimate power are capable of. And the fact that they got a book on stats for a lot of these people, giving them, 600 hit points, for example. Basically what they're telling you is that these are fightable entities, that if your character can get epic level enough that they could go nose to nose with a god. Well, if you can go nose to nose with a god and have a chance of success, at this point your character's long surpassed anything that they could ever possibly cope with and deal with in the greater game world, so to speak. We've passed beyond the realm of reasonable play. Now, you either need a very experienced set of players and an experienced GM who truly understands the nuances here, or you're really off on a tangent and you're just having ultimate fun with no real concept of reality. The reality check was long thrown out the window, which is fine if that's what you want to play. But you'll find a lot of other players won't step into those shoes. They'll come into a game that's got that kind of vibe and go, and not play, because that's just not in the spirit of the game, any of the game systems, majority of the game systems. And we're back to that slippery slope thing. The use of deities should be extremely sparing. I'm of that opinion. It's just my opinion. If you're doing one where you've got them in their pockets constantly, hey, fine. If they're the chosen one and the god's manipulating them, using them for a chess piece or a pawn or guiding their every step, then okay, fine. They're having conversations with their god on a daily basis, and it's literally the guy sitting across the table and they're sharing a beer Okay, fine. Not for me, but okay. And the mechanics allow for it. Let's keep that in mind too. The game mechanics, especially Dungeons and Dragons, we have to look at. I'm going to look at it from this perspective. Dungeons and Dragons is the gorilla in the world when it comes to the game systems. You can make all your arguments all you want about this game system or that game system being better or being smoother or being less chunky or what have you, all you want. That's fine. What I'm telling you right now, at no point have we yet have another game system that runs the gamut from 0 level to God, and with all the mechanics in between. We can go from 0 to 500th level, given time, because the mechanics are there. We've got all the stuff. And they've changed the terminology and the names over the years, but the fact of the matter is it's been there since the early 90s, when they came out with the advanced player manuals, when they came out with the epic level concepts, when they came out with the original Deities and Demigods. Those games, sourcebook supplement, originally were probably just there to give you some reference material when dealing with the deities. But we came out with planar travel. We came out with extra-dimensional travel. We came out with high-level, high-powerful magic. Have you ever noticed? Look at it. Have you ever noticed that there's actually, well, there's no cap in experience points. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. There's no cap in the ability for a warrior to do excessive amount of damage as they go up into the epic levels and beyond. Magic hits a plateau. There are no 20th level spells. There's no 50th level spell lists. There's a few offbeat, oddball additions that some players have created to put on the sidelines that give some taste for that. But D&D came along and come out with the concept of, well, we'll give you the machinery, the mechanics you need to create more magic stuff. We'll let you come up with these epic levels things, because in reality, we can take a 100th level master mage wizard who fires off a fireball that's so big and so powerful. If you follow the an unopened line of progression for magic, that he's basically set off a nuclear thermal reaction and obliterated half of the county. I'm just literally destroys the city in that capability. Instead, they capped it. They put a ceiling and said, okay, no more than this amount, 20D whatever. You can't roll more than 20 dice worth of damage. And it can be modified by this, this, and this, but at some point, we cap it. Because they put the mechanics in play that allow you, if you're really determined, to take the cap off and move forward. Doing so removes the lion's share of the common sense gaming. What I mean by that is the average, quote, fantasy world, real world scenario stuff, where we walk in the footsteps of most adventurers going out into the woods, and whether they're murder hobos or they're pick and choose collectors, or the guy that's on a quest to be the next king, or what have you. The truth is 99.9% of all characters and NPCs ever encountered will never get below or never get above level 15, 20 at the most. And that's because, and we have a pyramid there. So, what do you got? Most of your level 0 and very tiny few level 20s up here. If I use Forgotten Realms, since it's one of the better well-known systems, as an example, in the Forgotten Realms, at several points, they've had, in the novels, we've had characters that developed to a certain level. They ascended up that pyramid to a point where they actually were able, under special circumstances, to challenge a deity or the deities. In that case, we actually saw several of those who were once primary NPCs or characters in the novels ascend to deity status because somehow or another they managed to subvert or get the ultimate MacGuffin and gain that position that was suddenly left open. Or they eliminated the person that was in that position and took it over. Or other deities conspired to eliminate that to get it, so forth. Okay. very exceptions, very rare. If you're running that kind of campaign, awesome. Great. But the lion's share of us will not run games like that. Not because we can't, not because we choose, because we choose not to. Because for the most part, the mechanics are much more complicated and convoluted and hard to control at those higher levels. Much harder. It's just like looking at creating magic. Okay, I want to make the next ultimate magic spell, and I'm going to come up with something. And as a GM and the player, we got to conspire to make this thing reasonable. You have to have checks and balances. There has to be a chaos factor involved in something. We can't have somebody come up with the ultimate atomic bomb and not have some sort of payout. Well, one of the payouts or cause and effects that they put in the mechanics was experience points. So if a wizard wants to craft an uber magic item or create a spell, he or she is going to actually use up a significant piece of their experience to do so. This makes it so not, and this is based on how you look at the mechanics. This doesn't mean that they suddenly sacrificed several levels of their experience and dropped in order to create this. They either gave a piece of themselves to create this spell or this item, or they've hit the ceiling and they've used X amount of experience, which means they would need 3 times as much to get to that next level if they ever reached it. It's a matter of how you look at it, right? This is one of those checks and balances. This was the idea to keep the world from literally swimming in damn magic. Yet we still have a cap. The deities, demigods, especially the deities, are supposed to have no cap. They're supposed to be able to magnify their power to such a level that they can literally obliterate the planet. The only reason they don't is because there's a lot of other deities out there that won't let them. And they get into this complicated what have you. This is where one of the reasons planar travel came about, just one, and one of the end results of planar travel, I guess, should be one to look at it. Back to that slippery slope thing. If you can run a campaign and you got veteran players and everybody gets the idea that we're now, our epic level players are 30th level, whatever, and they're not running around hacking and slacking. The orcs and goblins of the world are no longer their problems. They're out there troubleshooting what could be end of days kind of thing or world changing kind of thing. We're back to Forgotten Realms. It shows up in a couple of the novels. But the primary guy right there, it's got to be Elminster. Elminster is the uber mage. He's a chosen of his goddess and the follower of the replacement goddess. He even slept with her at one point or two. If you've read his story, his very in-depth backstory and history in his books. As a wizard, he was so powerful, so capable of such great destruction, and he doesn't go around using it lightly. He doesn't go around, he does his little cantrip stuff, but he doesn't go around adventuring. He doesn't go out and doesn't need to. He's moved beyond that point. So what is he? He's a guardian and a troubleshooter. He's watching for that maniac who manages to uncap the limit and somehow rip a rift in time and space that's threatening to suck the world into oblivion. So he's going to go back and fix the oblivion part. Hence the reason he got stuck in hell and had to go through a bunch of BS. That's epic level stuff. The players have moved well beyond the average mundane gaming stuff. Beyond anything any of these are going to be able to do or show up or give us useful information for. That's my take on that. So make what you will of it.